So welcome again to this newest activity that we have with the research office dubbed as an afternoon with an expert. It's our 17th week since we have launched this particular activity. May I call on our dynamic research director, Dr. Ismael N, for us the statement of purpose for doing this activity. Sir Mael,
Hello, thank you so much, Jeffrey. It's another afternoon with an expert. Okay, so I am so excited because we were able to, to go this far in our activity. This is actually our 17th week, and it's amazing because we've been watched by of our students, our colleagues. So before I forget, Jeff, I would like to inform everybody that we have actually another communication mode used for this purpose. So we are live streaming our official Facebook page, the official Facebook page of the research office. So I think others are watching there where others preferred to join us on Zoom. So once again, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of An Afternoon with an Expert. So this is an activity actually that we regularly conduct, mainly to share our knowledge, our own stories, our own experience on research, which is done informally. Okay, so this is not a typical training in which there is a speaker or trainer or guest lecturer, but the kind of platform we are using, which is Zoom and Facebook page, that allows us actually to be more casual. The discussion is very free-flowing, very loose, that we don't have to be using formal languages. And we're experiencing this as we start the first minute of this activity begins. So that's the purpose of this activity, and we're hoping that our students, our colleagues across system will learn a lot from this activity.
Thank you, Dr. Talili. I would like to articulate first the Zoom house rules that we shall be observing the whole time. First, use the prescribed Zoom background that we have just emailed to you. Second, mute your microphone while in the virtual room. Keep it muted during the entire event, especially when you are not talking. And you can actually show a virtual hand raise if you intend to join the discussion, share insights, or ask questions. Any of the participants in the virtual room can freely share or intervene at any points in the discussion to facilitate this exchange of ideas, and stay seated and give the presentation your full attention. This afternoon, I am personally excited to introduce to you our sharer. He is a professor of the Department of Technology and Communications Management and currently a research director here in the university. He holds a doctorate degree in communication from Cebu Normal University. His expertise are the following: communication, social science research, qualitative and quantitative research studies, as well as educational management. Ladies and gentlemen, our speaker for this afternoon is Dr. Ismael N. Sir Mael.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you. Okay, again, it's another afternoon for sharing our knowledge, our insights on research. This afternoon, Jeff, what I'm sharing to all is on instrumentation, okay? So I'm very excited to share this to our colleagues, to our students, because, especially to our students, because this is one of the things that they need to know, especially when they dip their shoes in thesis or in research. Whether they're in the undergrad or graduate levels, it's very helpful for them to know what instrumentation is. Okay, so I titled my sharing as simple as instrumentation, and let's first find out the significance of instrumentation in a particular research project or even in thesis, okay, as an academic exercise. Now, I would like to provide a caveat to our audiences that for all studies, okay, I mean, not for all the time that you need to construct an instrument for all studies or projects that you are doing, okay? I have to emphasize this because there are research projects, there are investigations that do not require instrumentation, okay? So the instrument or the type or the choice of instrument is dictated by the kind of data that you need for your research, okay? So that is one important thing. First, just to give a clear background of what an instrumentation is, I would like to differentiate instrumentation and instrument. So apparently on screen, instrument is anything, okay? Any tool or implement used in collecting, measuring, or analyzing data. So there are many tools or instruments that we can use in gathering or collecting data, in analyzing data also. So later on, I will show some of the common instruments that a researcher can use in gathering research data. So if that refers to any tool, anything that we use to collect, to measure, to analyze data, instrumentation apparently is the process, okay? The process of constructing the instrument. And this is one challenging thing to many students, especially those beginners in research. Although we can always find instruments on the web, but seldom can we find an instrument that is something that fits our research. I mean, the data that we need as stated in the objectives of the study cannot be accommodated in that instrument alone. So seldom can we find that as a ready instrument that we can use in our own study. Most of the time, we need to revise, we need to make some amendments in the instrument that we can get from the internet or from related studies, okay, published or unpublished, that fits our research. I mean, the data that we need as stated in the objectives of the study cannot be accommodated in that instrument alone. So seldom can we find that as a ready instrument that we can use in our own study. Most of the time, we need to revise, we need to make some amendments in the instrument that we can get from the internet or from related studies, okay, published or unpublished. So there are certain types of instrument I would like to share with you, okay, in the list. First is what we call the observation schedule. We have interview guide, interview schedule, we have survey questionnaire, we have rating scale, we have checklist. So Army Joy mentioned earlier, because Army Joy is an auditor of a particular project. She is an auditing officer of a particular project. And when she goes on field, when a particular project takes off, or even during the implementation of the project, Army Joy does the monitoring, okay? She does the evaluation. So I asked her this morning, what instrument do you use in monitoring a particular project? So Army Joy told me it's checklist. So later on, I will show you a sample of checklist. Now, aside from an instrument called checklist, we also have document schedule or data sheet, and then we have schedule for institutions. Now, this afternoon, I will be focusing on survey questionnaire. Okay? I have to repeat this. Not all research studies or projects require an instrument. Certainly, not all projects require survey questionnaire. So again, your instrument is dictated by the type of data that you need as stated in your problem statement or objectives of the study. Now, let's unlock terminologies first. What's the difference between schedule and questionnaire? So schedule is used as a tool for interviewing. Okay, anything that you use, you have your interview guide. Okay, list of questions when you do interview. So we call that one schedule. That piece of instrument is called schedule. Okay, interview schedule. Now, if it's for mailing, it's for administering, we call that one questionnaire. So please do not interchange the two terminologies. Okay, now again, if you conduct interview, you use an instrument called a schedule. If it's going to be mailed or administered, or if you send that one through, Google form, then you call that one questionnaire. Now, the first thing is observation schedule. Okay, we have to understand that in research, there are two types of observation. We call that one participant observation, and the second one is the non-participant observation. Either ways, okay, or either of the types of observation, what you will be needing when you do that as an instrument is an observation schedule. Okay. Second tool, guys, is what we call interview guide. Okay. So I know all of you here have tried conducting an interview when you want to collect data. Okay, especially for pure qualitative research. The researcher needs to conduct an interview in order to collect in-depth data out of an in-depth interview that is being conducted. So we call the instrument interview guide. So very important, you have to have an interview guide, list of questions, major questions or even broad topics or areas that you need to cover in the interview. You don't need to list all the questions, guys. Just the big questions. Just the big questions that would somehow guide you as to which to ask first and which to ask next, so that you won't miss any question, important question that elicit important data for your research. Another instrument is what we call rating scale. Okay, so rating scale is very popular in social science research, also in education research. Okay, so I think everybody is familiar with that Likert scale questionnaire. Okay, when you rate a particular indicator or statement accordingly, so it depends on the scale that you want to consider, depending on the variable or concept you are dealing with at the moment for your research. So here we go with Army Joy's favorite instrument, the checklist. Okay, so I do not know if it's clear on your screen. I have here a sample of a checklist. So in the checklist, on the extreme left, you can see here some interrogative statements to check. Okay, from the word check, the checklist, list of questions or statements. So from this instrument, you will know if a particular process is being implemented adequately or completely. Okay, so Army Joy this morning shared an example, like in her job, like she's out to the field to monitor a particular project, and before that particular part of a project begins, there is this what we call checklist to ensure that all the parts, all the implements, all the things needed to to complete that part of a project are there in terms of quality, in terms of adequacy. So a checklist helps you a lot. So this is how it looks like. Now the checklist looks like this. So usually, again, there are interrogative statements and then absence, presence, or yes or no. And then from there, we will know if everything that you need is present or not. Another instrument is document schedule or the data sheet, which is a list of items of information to be obtained from documents, records, and other materials. So samples actually on the right, okay, I got from the web. Okay, we have here document revision sheet and all others here. Okay, another tool is schedule for institutions. So usually it includes various categories of data relating to their profile, functions, and performance. So in the research office, for example, so we have this schedule for the office, okay, meaning it's a data sheet, okay, it could be a blank sheet that is used by the interviewer. Again, remember schedule if it's going to be an interview in which the interviewer wants to know the profile of the office or institution as well as its functions and performance. So what you will need is schedule for institution, an agency, or schedule for an office. Okay, to instrumentation as a process. Okay. Okay, to instrumentation as a process. Okay. Now, what are the steps in the process? The first thing is I would like you to determine the dead. Okay, that's very important. Before you start constructing, before you start designing your instrument, it is very imperative for you to know what are the data needed for your research. Because again, you are not to collect data that is not needed for your research. I have to repeat that. You don't have to collect data which is not needed to your research. Okay? So I hope you will remember that all the time. That is why it's very important to determine the data that you need. Second, I'd like to suggest to prepare a dummy table. Dummy table is very important, guys. Okay? This allows you to remember everything that you need for your research. The kind of data that you want to gather, all reflected in your dummy table. Okay? In the case of my students in the undergrad, okay, they're TCM students, I require them actually to prepare a table, and this is their output. So we have title here on top. Okay, their study is titled Changing Lenses, Binocular Perspective on the Interpersonal Communication Competence of Sales Agents. And then their main problem statement is the study investigated the interpersonal communication competence of the sales agents of Mitsubishi Motors Corporation in Cagayan de Oro City. So in the table on the extreme left, see the statements, okay, as listed. Okay, so what is the demographic profile of sales agents in terms of age, sex, civil status, and length of service? Second, the problem statement is they would like to know, they would like the student researchers to know what is the interpersonal communication competence performance of sales agents concerning self-disclosure, empathy, interaction management, immediacy, and environmental control. Of course, these sub-concepts and are well defined. Third, to find out if there is a difference in the performance of ICC when the respondents are grouped according to their demographic profile. Now, this is how important a dummy table is because it displays here the method of data that you will gather. Okay, the method of data gathering, rather, the method of data collection that you will use, whether done through face-to-face, whether it is through survey, or in whatever means appropriate for your available resources, or considering your available resources. And then on the third column, you have to indicate here the instrument that you will use. So apparently problem number 1 requires an instrument to get. So the most appropriate here is through survey questionnaire, as well as for second and the third sub-problem statements. And the last column, you also have to indicate here or specify here the data to gather. Okay, so in the case of sub-problem, the data you need or that they need is profile of the respondents. For number 2 problem, interpersonal communication competence for sales agents. And number 3 is the significant difference in the profile of ICC. Okay, now after preparing the dummy table, you're now ready to determine the respondents. Okay, so the basic questions are, who are your respondents? Okay, you have to know this beforehand. Who are your respondents? You should know them. Okay, second, are they persons with specialized knowledge relating to the problem under study, or are they lay people? What is their level of knowledge and understanding? What about the choice of words and concepts they have been using or they are using? Because you need to consider that in order to properly and clearly design your instrument. Because the words as well as the concepts you will use in your instrument depends upon the level of your respondent's knowledge. So it's very important, to cut the long story short, to be able to know the level of your respondents. Fourth is data gathering method decision. Okay, so you have to decide here, how would you collect the data? Will that be through face-to-face interview or mailing? Or would you use the Google form and then you send that one, or you send the link to your target respondents? Okay, that is one of the ways also. Number 5, you have to draft or prepare a draft of your instrument. So one of the things, best practices that we can do here is to prepare a broad outline of the instrument. So I've been telling you this many times since I first shared the topic here on writing intercontinental literature review, that a review can be best written if you prepare an outline. So for everything that we do, especially in writing, to make sure our thoughts, our ideas will be well organized, I best suggest to prepare an outline and then decide on the sequence of your groupings. Okay, so after grouping the thoughts, the ideas, the categories of data in your instrument, you have to group them accordingly, and then you list the questions to be asked under each group heading. So that's very basic. In outline, in outline, there are big ideas, there are sub-ideas or subcategories that you need to consider, and then another major or big idea and sub-idea and sub-ideas. It's one important thing to know about outlining. Step number, evaluation of the draft instrument. So it's very important. It helps to, evaluate the draft instrument. So you guys, as the researchers, must rigorously examine each question. Find out if the question you included in your instrument would elicit data you need to answer your research question. Okay, so I think that is very understandable. Step number 7 is I would like you to pilot test your instrument. So pilot testing your instrument to a group of respondents, group of 5 or 6 or 8 or 10, of the respondents will help you understand or know whether there are things that you need to improve in the instrument, such as weaknesses in terms of construction, weaknesses in terms of the way the statement is constructed, the choice of words. Because, you know, if you look at your own work, for example, the instructions, if you look at it, maybe you can get it right. You can get it immediately because you're the one who constructed it. But from the lens of other people, it may be hard to understand. So it's very important to pilot test your instrument. And number 8, of course, I would like you to specify procedures or instructions. So again, going back to the need of clarifying your instructions, it's very important to use simple language than highfalutin words. It's very important to construct short sentences as part of your instructions than complicating it with hard to understand terminology. So the simpler, the better. The shorter, the clearer it is to understand. So I hope you will do your instruction writing that way. And step number 9, design the format. So I'm very particular with the format of your instrument, no? The face of your instrument, and very particular. So I told my students to check on the face validity of their instrument. So looking into the font size, the font style, the spacing, the margin, it's very important. Those are things that you need to consider when you design the format of your instrument. Okay? Now, let's focus on survey questionnaire. Of the many research tools that we can probably use to collect data or to measure data or to analyze data, this afternoon I would like to give more time on survey questionnaire, preparing the survey questionnaire. Okay? There are parts of a survey questionnaire, guys. Okay? The first is very basic, the cover letter. Okay? Please do not send out copies of your instrument, your survey questionnaire, without a cover letter. Okay? Because in the cover letter, you will state, of course, the purpose of your activity, the purpose of your research, the title of your research, what is that for? Okay? Is that risky for your respondents to join the survey? What are the accrued risks? Sorry, what are the accrued benefits of joining the survey? Okay, and then you also give them assurance that the data they will reveal, they will provide you as they answer the survey questions will be kept highly confidential. Okay, that can be explicated in the cover letter. Then the second part is the profile of the respondents if it's necessary. Okay, again, not all the time when you need to collect profile of the respondents. Okay, always go back to your statement of the problem or objectives of the study because the sub-problem statements are arranged there logically. So whichever comes first, okay, for example, sub-problem number 1 asks profile of the respondents in terms of sex probably, in terms of their socioeconomic status, in terms of the family income and all others. They must come after the other accordingly, as arranged logically in the statement of the problem or objectives of the study section. Okay, and then after that will be the general questions. So you can imagine now how well designed a survey questionnaire if you have them all in your instrument: the cover letter, the profile of the respondents, and the general questions. Okay, so what are the steps in designing a questionnaire? First one, okay, I would like you to formulate the research question and research objectives or goals. Very important. Questions like, what do you wish to ascertain? What do you want to find out? What do you want to discover? Okay, that must be very clear from the very start. Okay, so number one, again, in designing a questionnaire is to formulate the research question. Second, I'd like you to define the target population. Okay, if, for example, your study would like to find out the lived experience of COVID-19 victims or patients in Barangay Carmen, Cagayan de Oro City, who do you think are your target, or who do you think are those individuals in your target population, Army Joy? If you would like to find out their lived experience, no, during the pandemic, the COVID-19, would you like to know, Army Joy, their lived experience? Those in the, how do you call that? In the quarantine area center? Would you like to know, Army Joy, how have they been when they were there for 14 days with the presence of cockroaches, ants, the cobwebs and all? Would you like to know the kind of struggle they had, Army Joy, when they were there? That's worth knowing, right? That's worth documenting. So, well, if that is your intention, if that is what you wish to target, then COVID-19 survivors could be your target respondents or individuals that embody the target population. Siyempre, you don't have to interview market vendors, fish vendors, Army Joy, but COVID-19 survivors. Is that clear? Third step, okay, formulate the questions in order to answer the research questions. Okay, so again, we always go back to the statement of the problem or objectives of the study, because whatever is number one there should be the first entry in your survey questionnaire, in that order. Okay, your statement of the problem or objectives of the study must always be your reference in designing or constructing your survey questionnaire. Number four, I'd like you to organize your questions. So if we go back to number three, now formulating the questions, you can actually write down questions. Don't mind yet order. Don't mind yet the sequence. Just always refer to the statement of the problem. Yes, you're minding the sequence because, again, whatever is the first there should be the first entry in your survey questionnaire. What will be the next should be the next. What will be the last should be the last, okay? In that order, but you can freely formulate the questions in this time, in this step, and then after that, you have to organize the questions. And then I would like you to consult experts, so even faculty researchers. We cannot always claim we are already expert in preparing a survey questionnaire. We should always consult experts, okay? There are colleagues in our departments, respective departments, or in the respective colleges whom we can consult with regard to validity of the questions, of the instruments, with regard to reliability of the instruments, okay? We can always consult our data analyst. Then I would like you to test your instrument, considering test on validity and test on reliability. So it's another topic. Now we can probably request our colleagues to share how to perform validation of instrument. Okay, test on validity, and another sharing could be about test on reliability of the instrument. So in validation, for example, it's always important to determine the validity index of each statement or item in your instrument for us to warrant the validity of your instrument. And number 7, as I've said earlier, I'd like you to pilot test your instrument for you to discover, for you to find out if there are things in your instrument that need further improvement. Okay. Now this time, I would like to share with you the types of questions. Army Joy, when you were in college, Army Joy, when you've been taking examination, midterm, finals, prelim, what type of questions do you remember? In test questionnaire, could be what? Objective type question, right? So you had this essay. Did you have essay questions? Multiple choice, Army Joy? Supply questions also, okay? But in research, the common types of questions could be factual and opinionated related questions or opinion related questions, okay? Example, Army Joy, can you contract COVID-19 by having sex with multiple partners without using a condom? So that could be a valid question, right? So that is an opinionated related or opinion related question. So if that is one of the questions in your survey questionnaire, then you need Likert scale for that, no? Scale on agreement, no? Second type is opinion related question. Another example, are you male or are your male colleagues sexist? Okay. Third is threatening or sensitive or non-threatening, non-sensitive question. So there are also questions like that in a survey questionnaire. But seldom can you find threatening questions. Well, if it's made part of the questionnaire, I would say it seldom appears. Okay? As much as possible, we avoid threatening or too sensitive question in the questionnaire. Number 4 is open-ended question. I think everybody is familiar with this. Example, like, how do you live a day with your siblings? So open-ended because it allows the respondents to respond in different ways, using different thoughts or opinions. And the opposite is closed questions, closed-ended questions, wherein you are given choices. You cannot provide any other responses, but choices are provided for you to choose from. COVID-19 patients, Army Joy, tend to observe health protocols. So choices are strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. Okay? And the number 6 type of question is skip. We call that one skip or branching or contingency question. Like this below, guys. Example, do you smoke cigarettes? So yes, no. Choices are yes, no. If yes, how many cigarettes do you smoke on average per day? So another choice or choices, less than 10, 10 to 19, 20 to 39, 40 or more. Now, if your answer is no, if no, please proceed to question 6, assuming that this is question number 5. So that is what we call skip question, branching, or contingency question. So if you like to call it skip question, go for gold. If you want it branching question, go ahead. If you like it contingency question, because you would like to know what contingency means, go ahead. Let's proceed to wording your questions. Very important. Like I said before or earlier, your question should be short, simple, to the point. Should be clear and ambiguous with clear instructions. Your question should not contain double negatives. Like, you cannot not write your answers on the margins. Is it easy to understand, Joy? Part of the instructions, you cannot not write your answers on the margins. Is it easy to understand? Okay, it requires you, Army Joy, no? It requires you to think and think. What should be the right thing here? What should be the right point here? Okay, so double negatives As much as possible, let's avoid them. Second, respondents should be asked to express opinions about their own views. So, Army Joy, if the respondents are the fathers, you as the mother or the wife, do not answer it for your husband, for the father. Okay, did you get it? Because your husband is tired. Your husband is a policeman, tired from work, who arrives home at 9 o'clock in the evening without supper, without dinner. And so the wife who is so concerned does the answering for him. That's a big no-no, okay? That's a big no-no. Number 3, the question should be phrased neutrally. Not too sensitive, okay? Not too offensive, okay? Not too threatening, but neutral. Number 4, the question should not contain emotional languages to the point na muhilak na gyud ang imuhang respondents. Maguol, makinom sa iyang mga utang kay sa iyang utang sa katong demand letter na ani nga word niya na meet na encounter na pud niya sa iyang questionnaire, so nakahilak siya. So there are actually emotional words that we need to avoid. Number 5, the question should not make the respondent feel guilty. Okay? Do not ask, how often do you have sex with your husband in a day? So it is an assumption question, right? It's assumed that you're really doing sex with your husband every day. Although in reality, it's not. Okay? 6, the question should not have prestige bias. 7, the question should accommodate all possible answers. Okay? And number 8, the response alternative should be mutually exclusive. Okay? Meaning each choice in your list of choices should be mutually exclusive. Dili kaparihas. Maski 1 or 2%. Okay? Each choice should be exclusive. And number 9, the question should not make assumptions. And number 10, the question should not ask about hypothetical situations or assumptions, something that is based on assumptions. Jeff, those are the things I'd like to share. Maybe we can invite Jeff, another fellow, another colleague, or any one of us across campuses to share on the in-depth preparation of a survey questionnaire. Okay, with a workshop probably, if you could allow the sharer to do a quick workshop on how an instrument, particularly survey questionnaire, is prepared and designed.
Thank you for that comprehensive talk on instrumentation. So from Sir N. Galieto, hello sir, good afternoon. Regarding the survey questionnaire, does it include terms and conditions stated on the Data Privacy Act of 2012? Do we need disclaimer for it?
Yes. Sometimes that data privacy, the provision of the data privacy statements can be integrated in the cover letter. Okay? Sometimes it is also embedded on the informed consent form. Okay? So if your respondents, by the way, are adults, you use the informed consent form. If they are minors, you use the informed assent form. Okay? So again, hi Eman, thank you for joining us again. If you would like to integrate the provision of the Data Privacy Act statement in the cover letter, so be it if you can manage that one properly, or if you can integrate that one in the informed consent form, also stating the accrued risks and benefits of joining the survey, you could also do that one there. So it's a good thing Jeff Eman mentions that one. Okay, that's very important, especially that we're very particular now, we're very careful now in terms of divulging data or personal information. We always have to observe provisions in the Data Privacy Act.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Talili. We have one from Jay. It says here, I have a question regarding on types of questions portion of the session. Are religion-based questions part of threatening or sensitive questions? What are your thoughts about this, sir? What is the right instrument to use regarding this matter? Yes, what, Dr. Talili?
All right. Maybe we can qualify, Jeff, threatening questions. Okay. If that question invades, no, if it tends to invade privacy or culture, or if it disturbs the norms of a particular group, no, improperly or gravely, we should avoid that. Okay. But questions on religion, depending on how it is, it is stated in the questionnaire. Like if you ask your respondent as to his or her opinion on Christianity, I think that is not offensive. It's never threatening. If you ask your respondents on their, perspective on Islam, for example, that to me is never threatening. So my response to that is it depends on how the question is framed. The question is phrased. Okay. So again, if it tends to invade the privacy of the person, there is this coercion. Okay. So that is somehow threatening or sensitive, too sensitive question on the part of the respondents. We need to avoid that.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Talili. Let's have Dr. Janet Rondina. Ma'am Jan.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I appreciated the sharing of Dr. Talili because I myself, I am not used to it. In the field of mathematics education, what we did there is kind of majority is quantity to my experience. Now, may I know, sir, because I am very interested to know this, is there an appropriate number of questions in a survey questionnaire enough to answer just one problem?
All right. That is a valid question. Thank you so much, Dr. Rondina. There is no such thing as enough or not enough if you talk about number of research questions to be included in your questionnaire. Okay? Bottom line there is, again, you always have to go back to your objectives of the study or statement of the problem, because there you can see the list of sub-problem statements, right? Sub-questions. You have the main problem statement, the major question, and the sub-problem statements or questions. So always get back to that section of your paper, and then don't forget again to prepare a dummy table. So a dummy table is very important because observing or preparing the dummy table allows you to remember to double check if each question in your problem statement is adequately answered already or not, given the number of questions you formulated in your questionnaire. So there is no such rule, Dr. Rondina, saying that in every sub-problem statement, there should be at least 5 or 10 or 20 questions. Okay? So long as the data that you desire will be gathered, will be made available given this number of questions to answer one sub-problem statement, then that's enough already. That will suffice already.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, talking of another, sir, talking
Sure.
of a Likert scale, because in the field of mathematics education, we measure the aptitude also. Now, we always use the 1 to 5 Likert scale, and what you have presented a while ago, you have 1 to 8 rather. Yeah, I have read also 1 to 10. Asa kaya which among them is very yet because the description is just the same, then in your own opinion, what do you think is the appropriate 1 to 5 lang ba, 1 to 8, 1 to 10?
All right.
Or,
yeah, thank you, Dr. Rondina. The Likert items in the scale depends actually on the concept or variable that you're measuring. Okay, so we talk about levels there. Okay, so again, depending on the concept, for example, if the concept is on importance, okay, importance, that's the concept or the variable. So in your Likert scale, you could have most important, more important, least important or not important at all. So you could have 4, okay? So you can never have that in 10 item scale, definitely. Given the degree of or level of comparison, if you have importance as a concept. So it actually depends, Dr. Rondina. You cannot make that uniform for all concepts or variables. If you have a 10 or 8, it all depends on the concept you are measuring in your Likert scale. So there are, of course, statistical implications for that, okay? But again, it all depends on the concept you measure.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank
All
you.
right.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rondina and Dr. Talili. We have one question here, a follow-up question from Sir Eman. Is it okay to give rewards or something to the respondents just to let them answer the questions? Yes, for Dr. Talili.
Yeah, in the Philippines, Jeff, no, Eman, I noticed that, sorry to say this, Jeff, no, Eman, in the Philippine setting, based on my experience, you know, it's hard to get their kiliti, no? It's hard to get their yes to join a survey, to answer a survey questionnaire. So, in other words, it is quicker to get their yeses when you have tokens, no, form of pahalipay. It's not actually bribery. It is a way of giving them gratitude for responding to your survey. But if you're getting a big number, Jeff, of course, it becomes expensive, no? It must be expensive, Eman. So, well, to me, it's not actually an infringement rather of research ethics, because it's not bribery. It's a way of thanking your respondents. But if it's going to be money, Jeff, if you're giving 500 or 1,000 per respondent, oh my God, as if you are running for a political position, that already is another thing. So no problem about that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dalili. How about the others? I have one here. I think it's coming from a student. Good afternoon, sir. Will the contents of the instrument lead to answer a stated problem? Thank you.
Definitely, definitely. That is why
Definitely.
I said we always refer to the problem statement or objectives of the study. Kay dili man ka mangutana sa imong instrument kung wala dito gikinahanglan sa imong objectives. Okay, do not collect data that is not needed. That's the rule of thumb.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Talili. Another question here coming from Ms. Army. Good afternoon po. Is there an approving body who will approve the instrument before it is administered to the respondents, or is it just within the agreement of the researching team regarding the finality of the instrument?
Wow. Wow.
Thank you.
I like that question, okay? $1 million question. There is no such thing as approving authority, okay? Because we can always administer, we can always use the instrument. Again, my recommendation earlier is after subjecting that one to tests, test on reliability, test on validity, and if you subjected that one already to pilot test, you consulted already experts, no, content expert in the discipline, grammarian, data analyst, or statistician. When this is already valid to them, go for gold, Joy, Army Joy. But in our case, Jeff, Army Joy, at the university, we have already crafted this research ethics manual. In fact, it's been approved already by the board as presented by Dr. Cabahog himself, no, our good VP Rai. So in that process, if, for example, a proposal is presented to the ethics board, then part of that is to look into the validity or even the reliability or the ethical aspect of the instrument being part of the entire proposal.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Talili. Maybe we can award the certificate of recognition to our expert. May I request Chris to share it with us, Chris? All right, so this certificate of recognition is awarded to Dr. Ismael N, our sharer this afternoon, who just talked about this particular topic, instrumentation, signed this day, August 12, 2022, by our university president, Dr. Ambrosia II. So congratulations po, Dr. Talili, and thank you for really sharing your knowledge in research.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you, everyone.